Hi everyone, I'm here today to talk about Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. So the first part of my review will be non-spoilery, so have no fear. I won't spoil any of the books. This is the fifth in the series. So first off, isn't this book just beautiful? It's so pretty. And it feels nice. It has one of those soft covers. So very excited for this one. I pre-ordered it and read it as quickly as I could, even though I was actually a little bit late to jump on the Throne of Glass bandwagon. I only read the other books in the series this spring, and I kind of marathoned all of them, and then I could not wait for the fifth one to get here this September. And I am sad that I didn't start reading these books earlier because they are amazing, just like everyone says they are. And if you haven't read them yet, go do that right now because they're amazing. Yeah, and this one was a lot of fun. I have read all of them in the series, but I haven't read the prequel novellas yet, which I'm going to go back and read next, but I kind of wish I had read them before this book, or maybe before the fourth one. So if you're thinking about when to read those, I think that you should probably read them before the fourth one. Although you don't have to, like I said, I didn't, and you definitely, there are stories that you're not aware of if you haven't read the prequel novellas, but it doesn't really impede your enjoyment of the main story, but there are definitely references to that I know that I wasn't picking up on in this book. Overall, this was a highly anticipated book of 2016 for me. I was very excited for it, and it did live up to my expectations. However, I didn't like it as much as I liked the fourth book, Queen of Shadows. Up until this book, I have thought that each book was in the series was better than the one preceding it. So I liked the first one, and I loved Crown of Midnight, the second one, and then I loved Heir of Fire, the third one, and then the fourth one, Queen of Shadows, pretty much blew my mind, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And this one was very good, but didn't really top Queen of Shadows for me. I think Queen of Shadows is still my favorite. But that said, I would still give this book a 5 stars. It made me feel all the feels. It was a good time. It was very intense reading. I think this one's a little darker than the books that have come before it in tone, but I think that's sort of a natural progression of the plotline. Okay, so now I'm going to start getting into spoilers. So if you haven't read this book or the other books in the series, you will be spoiled if you keep watching past this point, so fair warning, spoilers lie ahead. Okay, so spoilery section. This book, I am totally fangirling over it, and it broke my heart. But first off, let's talk about the characters. One of the things I really noticed in this book was the absence of Kale. I think I'm saying his name right. I'm not sure. Feel free to correct me. Yeah, he has been a constant since the first book, and we don't get any of his perspective in this book. We don't get any information about what's happening with him, which I thought was interesting. I have never been on Team Kale, so I wasn't heartbroken by that, but I did think it was kind of odd. So we know that he's down on the southern continent with Nethrin trying to get his legs fixed, and also hopefully raising an army, because they sure need help. So yeah, it would be good for Kale to come back in the sixth and final book with an army to give to Dorian from the southern continent. Let's hope that that's what's happening. But I did find the lack of his perspective sort of strange, and I'm sure that a lot of people missed him. I was always on Team Dorian, at least in the first and second one. really. I thought Kale was always a little self-righteous for my taste. I'm glad that he's kind of seen the light and come to terms with the situation and has kind of joined the rebellion and all of that, but it took him way too long. And in the meantime, I just thought he was way too judgy of Selena/Aylin's profession as an assassin. He was way too judgy about her background and having killed people and her being a criminal, given that he was basically the minion of an evil tyrant king, and he knew a lot of the evil things the king was doing. And it took him way too long to kind of disavow his loyalty to the king and join the rebellion. I would have liked to have it happen earlier. So I'm glad that he's finally seen the light and joined the cause, but he's just kind of too mean to Aelin for me to ever really ship them together. And that ship sank hard in the 4th book. That ship was not seaworthy, as it turns out, but neither was my ship with Dorian. That's clearly not going to happen. I think that we saw also in the 4th one that was very, very unlikely. What with Rowan and Aelin's relationship developing and deepening and becoming very, very not platonic, like it was in the 3rd one. And then in this one, we really only see an intensification of that. So, all aboard the Rowan and Aelin ship, because that's what's happening. So I'm on board with that. I like Rowan. And in this one, they get married, and you find out that they were actually mates the whole time, which I thought was interesting and definitely kind of seals that up and wraps that up as the pairing for Aelin. So clearly Aelin and Rowan are going to be together. That's what's happening. There's no question about that. And the relationship was really sweet in this one. I thought saw a lot of character growth from both of them, and them developing together and trusting each other, and it was nice to see kind of Aelin trusting someone else, at least a little bit, being able to kind of give some people a heads up of her plans. She, of course, still has more plans up her sleeves that she doesn't tell anyone about, which makes Adian insane. But I also loved Adian and Lysandra. I thought that they were just so great, and watching their romance blossom in this book was so wonderful, and I really enjoyed that. Lysandra, man, what a girl to have on your team. She has been so helpful in this book. She was also in Queen of Shadows, but I think we really kind of saw Lysandra come into her own in this book, and that was a ton of fun. Same thing with Manon! Oh my god, I was so excited to see Manon finally tell her grandmother to shove it and go join Aelin's team. Sort of. That's not exactly how it happened, but it was so great to see that. And, surprise, she's the last Crochin Queen? I did not see that coming. But that was very interesting. Especially that she's the spitting image of Rhiannon Crochin, the last Crochin Queen. The one who placed the curse on all of the witches, ensuring that they can't go back to their witchy witchland home. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm very curious to see where that's going in the next one, because this book leaves off with Manon reunited with the 13, and thank God the 13 weren't all dead, like the Bloodhound told Manon that they were, and Astrid's fine, and I suspected that Astrid wasn't actually dead, and I was happy to hear that. It was so epic when the 13 on their wyverns came riding into battle to help Aelin. They totally slayed. It was great. They literally slayed, but it was pretty awesome. Elide and Lorcan, I thought that was one of the most interesting relationships in this book. They, kind of grow so close, but Lorcan doesn't really seem to realize or acknowledge the depth of his feelings toward Elide. And then with Lorcan's betrayal, even though I don't know that Elide should be as mad at him as she was. She was very upset. The sort of killed their relationship for now. We'll see. I think that she's going to forgive him. But yeah, I thought that was because he only called Mav because he thought that Alid was threatened by the Armada, which was actually on Aelin's side with Ansel Briarcliff, but he didn't know that. And so it's not like he called Mav to tell her, like, to come do what she did to Aelin. Like, he didn't know that she was going to do that. He should have told them that happened right when it did. I feel like that was really where the lapse was. But, Aelin knew anyway. But, yeah, I understand why Alid's mad, but I don't think that it was quite as egregious a betrayal as Alid seems to think that it was. But we'll see if there's a reconciliation in their future, as well as Aedion and Lysandra, who are also currently on the outs. In this book, we really see Erewhon kind of come out of hiding, where he's been in Duke Parrington's body this whole time. Which I have to say, when in the fourth one, Queen of Shadows, the King of Adarlan reveals that he's not actually the one he's not the puppet master, he's not the one controlling all of this. It's actually Duke Parrington / Erewhon. I kind of thought the king was lying. Like, I did not think it was going to be Duke Parrington. Thought that was going to be a bit of a red herring, but it was not. It was actually Duke Parrington. I just think that was a little strange given the king and Duke Parrington's interactions in the first book, Throne of Glass. Just because even when they weren't in front of people, Duke Parrington seemed sort of subservient to the king and seemed very sort of submissive. So I find it odd that that's not actually the case. I was kind of thinking that Holland was going to be Erewhon, the evil little kid, Dorian's little brother. I'm sure he's going to come back into it in the next book, because he and the queen are AWOL. So I'm sure that's going to be part of it. But I'm saying Erewhon is crazy and evil and knows much more of what he's doing than Aelin et al. Do, which is sad but makes sense since he's had like 1,000 years of sleep to scheme and plan this. But he always seems kind of one step ahead of her. Same with Mav. Man, Mav is a crazy bitch. She's nuts. And I really liked that, actually. I liked that it sort of wasn't so straightforward, good versus evil. Aelin and the forces of all that is good, kind of fighting the Dark Lord, Erewhon, the Demon King, invading their land is a little more complicated by Mav's involvement, especially since she's this fairy queen who, to the untrained eye might appear like a positive force, and she defeated Erewhon the last time he tried to do this. But of course, as we know back from Heir of Fire, Mav isn't so great, and she basically has this cadre of slaves that are blood sworn to her, that she treats pretty abominably, and we get a lot more about that in this book. But I really liked Mav's involvement, even though, she's kind of a character that I love to hate. Like, she's crazy and evil, and I totally hate her, especially with that end. Like, eesh. Mav, that was rough. But I'm glad that she's there. I think that she is a fun, evil character. And Mav's surprise at the end was heartbreaking, and I cried just so much, just buckets of tears. So many feels. It was so rough. Man, poor Aelin. Aelin's just had a rough life, but is still such a badass. And we learned a lot more kind of about the mythology of the world in this book, about the gods and goddesses, and their background with Elena and Erewhon. I was definitely mad at Elena in this book. She's been kind of a helpful force in the first and second books, but in this one we kind of learn more what happened with her and Adarlan's first king. I think his name is Gavin, and why they didn't actually defeat Erewhon. They didn't kill Erewhon. They just put him to sleep and told everybody that they killed him. Kind of how that happened. And Elena definitely screwed up with using her father's lock, which she didn't really know what was going on with that, and really screwed everybody else over. She had the best of intentions, but you know what they say about good intentions, and that's kind of what happened here. And that's why Aelin and team are in the pickle that they're in. Now, we know that Elena's mother was actually Mala Firebringer, and Mala's line has to kind of end this and use the lock because it was meant to be used, which entails an enormous sacrifice. But that could be either Aelin or Dorian, because they both are descendants of Mala, which I think is interesting and is important now that Mav has Aelin, and Dorian's going to continue the hunt for the key. He's willing to take Aelin's place, or I wonder if that's going to happen somehow, just because I can't imagine that Sarah J. Maas is going to kill off Aelin. I mean, it could happen, but I would bet a lot of money that Aelin survives the series. Even though I've heard that Maas only guarantees that Fleetfoot survives. Fleetfoot's the only character who is, like, definitely gonna live. Overall, I really loved this book. I cannot recommend this series enough. I recommend it to, like, literally everybody that I meet. It is so great, and Selena is just so badass, and I love her so much. So if you haven't read this one yet, you have just been severely spoiled, and I'm sorry, but I did warn you that it was going to happen, and you should definitely pick this up. I think that the only reason that I didn't like this one as well as Queen of Shadows was just the tone. It's darker, which all of these books have been pretty dark, but this one in particular, everything kind of goes to shit. You still get some really fun moments where, like Aelin or Rowan and like Dorian totally kick ass, and it's a lot of fun, but you had a lot more of those in Queen of Shadows, which was great. Queen of Shadows was just non-stop Aelin winning everything, which was a ton of fun to read, but obviously can't be sustained forever, and this book was sort of where our characters kind of have to face the gravity of the situation that they're dealing with and deal with some consequences from that, which made it a little bit less enjoyable for me personally to read than Queen of Shadows. It wasn't quite as much fun, but it was still a lot of fun, and definitely getting more serious and gearing up for the 6th and final book. Cannot believe that I now have to wait an entire year for. That's rough. So maybe this will increase my love by suspense, and I will be eagerly awaiting the next installment. Let me know what you guys all thought, and who your favorite character is, if you were similarly surprised by Kale's absence as I was. I would just love to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments. Bye.